First step was to take apart my 1974 Fender Precision bass to use to help me design the new bass. What I was looking to do was to create a hybrid of a 1970s Fender Precision bass, the 1970s reissue of the Telecaster bass, and a semi-hollow body Fender Thinline design that they used in the Telecaster guitar. With that, I came up with this design. You can see here the F-hole, the routing cavities for the pickups, the neck pocket, and the controls, as well as the hollow cavities for the semi-hollow design. Using that, created a template out of plywood for the body, which will be used to route the hollow cavities, the pickups, and there's a separate template that I created just for the neck pocket, which is not shown here. I'll be using 1.5" mahogany for the body. As you can see, I transferred the design over onto the body, but I will use the plywood template to route the final cuts. I'll do a rough cut with the bandsaw, then add the plywood template and use that on the router table to clean up the edges. The top is made of Sitka spruce. That's been glued together, 2 pieces. I had to join them and then glue them, sand them down, and I transferred the plans from the paper design onto the body. You can see the F-hole, the pickups hole, and the control hole. This is the body trimmed to shape on the bandsaw on the outside, and on the inside hollowed out with the drill press. Both, as you can see, just a little short of the edge, which will be cleaned up with the router. Here's the top, same thing, trimmed on the bandsaw to shape, and the F-hole pickups and control openings have been cut with a coping saw and sanded to their final shape. So what it looks like. I forgot to take a video of what the final body and top look like prior to assembly, but here it is all clamped up and glued. It's been 24 hours. I'm gonna take the clamps off, see how it goes. Well, here's the body with the clamps off, all glued up. Starting to look like a guitar. There's the little hollow sound coming together. Okay, the neck pocket has been routed and drilled for the neck. Came out pretty good. The binding channel has been routed. I was really worried about tear out, but it came out great. Now the next step is to glue in the binding and do the final sanding to prepare for finishing. Okay, the binding's all glued up. I chose the blue painter's tape instead of buying a specific binding tape, but what I did was I taped the painter's tape to a pine board and then peeled it off, and then taped it to a flannel shirt and peeled it off before I used it, to hopefully reduce the tackiness of the tape so it doesn't damage the spruce top. You know, I've heard some stories about bindings not gluing well and spaces and gaps, and this glue that I used seemed to work really well. So hopefully when I take off the tape, everything will look like $1,000,000. The next step is remove the tape, cut the binding and scrape it, and then sand the entire thing to prepare to finish it. Took the tape off. The binding looks great. I don't see any gaps, although because it's early, I still have to scrape it. You can see, hopefully the glue that got on the body won't affect any of the finish. I'm really happy with the way it came out. I guess the proof will be in the finish. Finished scraping and sanding the binding and did the final sanding for the body, so I am ready to put the finish on. The binding came out great, and I did a test fit of the neck to make sure there were no unforeseen problems before I do the finish that I need to fix, and there it is. So when I did the test fit of the neck, unfortunately I realized that the screw holes were not drilled in the exact place they needed to be. So when I tried to tighten it all the way, they wouldn't recess properly into the neck plate. What I decided to do was to fill them and re-drill them. Now the reason they weren't drilled exactly where they needed to be was I never clamped the guitar body on the drill press, and I didn't drill a pilot hole. So unfortunately I watched that video after I did this. There was a little movement, the drill bit wasn't exactly in the spot where it needed to be. So I'm thinking, how am I gonna fill these holes? I found this great, brilliant video. This guy, I think he works at the Fender Custom Shop or something. And what he explained, he said, find a piece of wood and you mill it down till it's somewhat round but bigger than what you need. Then you drill a hole through a metal plate and you basically pound the dowel through the metal hole and it comes out the other side shaved to the exact size you need. So I did that and it worked like a charm. You can see here on the back especially, the dowel that I created fit the hole perfectly. It's been sanded down, glued in and sanded down. There's the, I used the neck plate. Fortunately, the two holes nearest the neck pocket support were perfect. The other two holes were off. So you can sort of see how far off they were based on these holes I've drawn using the neck plate. So the next step is to properly drill these holes so they're located exactly where they need to be. Drilled the holes for the bridge screws and also the 4 big holes for the string through body. Now those 4 big holes don't go all the way through the body. I learned a really cool thing on YouTube on how to line up the holes on the back using this pin method. So I took the drill bit, drilled it through a piece of plywood and then attached that to the drill press table. Left the end of the drill bit sticking out and I will use that to line the holes. Flip the body over so the face is down. Each of the 4 holes that I drilled for the string through, I'll put the pin inside each one and then I have the bit here aligned so it will the ferrules can be recessed. I don't have a Forstner bit for it and I didn't want to buy one, so I'm just going to use a regular drill bit. So there's the pin. I'm going to place the base body on that pin. You can see it under here how it works. It just lines up with the holes that I drilled from the top. Push it down, bang, there it is. All 4 ferrule holes recessed perfectly in alignment. Okay, I started the finishing process. First step was coat a sealer, did a sanding after that. Then I did 2 coats of pore filler on the mahogany, sanded in between each one of those. 2 coats of sealer after the pore filler on the entire thing and sanded in between those. And then 2 coats of lacquer. I think the guitar's looking really good. I'm gonna sand this down and then do some more lacquer coats and it will be done. So the finishing is complete. I ended up putting on 3 coats of the Mohawk vinyl sealer and 8 coats of the Mohawk instrument lacquer, which for the lacquer that was 1 quart plus 1 spray can. After that drive for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I sanded it from 1000 to 2000 grit, sandpaper, wet sanding. I was very careful not to get water near the holes. Then I used Turtle Wax White polishing compound and scratch remover to get out the 2000 grit marks. And then finally the Meguiar's Mirror Glaze swirl remover to make it perfectly shiny. It came out great. Then I did my electronics. I soldered all the wires today. You know, I had a shielding plate in my precision bass from the early 70s, so I reproduced that. Probably doesn't need it. Wired the pickups. These are pots, 1968 pots. The pickups, I failed to mention, were from 1974. Finished all the soldering, the wiring, and getting ready to put it together. I set the neck relief by adjusting the truss rod using the capo and the feeler gauge. I adjusted the string action by adjusting the bridge height, and then adjusted the pickup height. Here's my original plan. There's the finished bass. Put on flat wound labella strings. Came out great.